The night was broken by a scream that tore through the silence. Emily clutched her chest as her father collapsed, his face pale and lifeless in the flickering light. She cried, "Papa, stay with me!" Her voice cracked, raw with fear. Rain hammered the rusted tin roof above their shack, each drop pounding like a drum of despair. Shadows danced across the cracked walls as the lantern flickered, threatening to go out. Emily's trembling hands tried to hold him, but his body grew colder with each breath. She whispered, "Don't leave me. I can't do this alone." The smell of damp earth and smoke filled the air, mixing with the sting of salt from her tears. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the broken windows as if the world itself mourned. Emily's heart raced, the room spinning around her as silence fell heavier than stone. It was the moment her childhood ended, the night her fight for survival began. The storm eased, but Emily's world remained broken. She sat beside her father's body, numb, as dawn's pale light crept through cracks in the walls. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "What will I do now?" The emptiness echoed back. She remembered his words, "You're stronger than you think." Those words now weighed heavy, mocking her loneliness. The shack felt colder, emptier, as if his absence pulled warmth from the air. Neighbors would not care. They saw her as just a poor girl destined for nothing. Yet in her heart, grief burned into anger, a seed of defiance. She clenched her fists, dirt pressing into her palms, and forced herself to stand. Her legs shook, but her eyes hardened. Emily said, "I won't disappear. I won't let them forget me." Emily carried her father's body outside. The air smelled of wet soil, heavy with rain. Her arms trembled, yet she refused to falter. Neighbors glanced from a distance, whispering, judging. Their silence cut sharper than knives. Emily's voice shook as she said, "He deserved more than this." She dug with bare hands, soil caking under her nails. Hours passed, each movement stealing her strength, but she pressed on. Tears blurred her vision, yet her resolve grew. With the final mound, she whispered, "Rest now, Papa. I'll carry us forward." The sky broke with faint sunlight, a fragile promise against despair. Emily wandered back to the shack, her body heavy from labor and grief. Every step felt like dragging chains, yet her mind whispered, "Keep going." Inside, the silence crushed her. She touched the lantern, now cold, and whispered, "This house is no longer home." The room smelled of damp wood, sorrow etched into every corner. She saw her reflection in a broken mirror, eyes swollen, face streaked with dirt and tears. She said, "I'm still here. I'm not done." Her voice cracked, but her spine straightened. She folded her father's worn shirt, pressing it to her chest. It was her shield, her reminder. That night, Emily sat outside the shack beneath a sky still scarred by storm clouds. She hugged her knees, eyes scanning stars peeking through the dark. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Are you watching me?" The wind rustled through grass, as if answering. She remembered stories her father told of hope hidden in the stars. Her chest ached, but her gaze steadied. Emily said, "If the world won't give me a place, I'll carve one myself." Her breath was sharp, her fists clenched. It was the night a broken girl swore to rise. Morning light filtered through the cracks of the shack, casting thin golden beams across Emily's tired face. She rubbed her swollen eyes and forced herself to rise. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, but grief weighed heavier. She whispered, "Papa, I will not let your memory fade." Her voice trembled, yet carried a spark. The village outside stirred with life, children's laughter echoing, but none reached her ears. Emily stepped outside, the dirt path slick from last night's storm, the scent of wet soil heavy in the air. She carried a small bundle of her father's belongings, each piece a fragment of memory. Neighbors avoided her gaze, whispering among themselves. Her chest tightened at their judgment, but she lifted her chin. "I'll carry on," Emily said softly, her breath sharp with determination. Emily walked through the village, her bare feet brushing against wet grass. She heard laughter nearby, and glanced toward children playing with handmade toys. For a moment, her lips curved into a fragile smile before fading into sorrow. She remembered being among them once, before poverty carved lines of hardship into her days. A wealthy merchant passed by on horseback, his cold eyes scanning her with disdain. He muttered, "Poor girl," and rode on. The sting burned, but Emily straightened her shoulders. "You'll see me differently one day," she whispered. Each step forward felt like rebellion, a silent declaration against the world's judgment. Though her heart ached, hope flickered like a candle refusing to die. By midday, Emily sought shelter under a large oak tree at the village edge. The sun burned overhead, and sweat traced paths down her dirt-streaked face. She unwrapped the bundle, revealing her father's old book, its pages worn but intact. She traced the faded words with trembling fingers. "He said, 'Knowledge is power,'" she whispered. The letters blurred through her tears, but her heart surged with memory. She recalled evenings when he read stories of heroes who rose from nothing, their courage carved from pain. Emily pressed the book to her chest, whispering, "If they could, then so can I." For the first time since his death, a spark of purpose lifted her spirit above grief. Later that day, Emily approached the market square, her bundle clutched tightly. Stalls brimmed with fruits, fabrics, and trinkets, but her pockets were empty. Vendors eyed her warily, some sneering. She overheard one whisper, "She has nothing to offer." Her cheeks flushed with shame, but she stood taller. She thought of her father's voice, urging her to believe in her worth. A kind older woman at one stall offered her a piece of bread with a gentle smile. Emily's eyes welled, and she whispered, "Thank you." That simple act felt like a lifeline in a sea of cruelty. She realized not everyone would turn away. There was still kindness, rare yet powerful. As the sun set, Emily returned to the oak tree with her small piece of bread. She sat quietly, the sky ablaze with streaks of orange and crimson. Each bite tasted of survival, bitter and sweet. She whispered, "This isn't the end, it's the beginning." The book rested on her lap, its weight both comfort and challenge. She gazed toward the horizon, where the sun dipped low, painting promises of another day. The wind brushed her hair, carrying faint scents of smoke and soil. For the first time, she felt not only grief, but also resolve. Emily said, "I will not be forgotten. I will rise." The night wrapped her in quiet determination. Emily approached the fields where villagers worked under the harsh sun, her body aching with hunger, but her spirit pushing her forward. She offered to help, her voice steady, "I can work for food." Laughter erupted among men, who mocked her frail frame. A tall overseer with sharp eyes stepped forward, his tone cold, "You're too weak. Go beg somewhere else." Heat burned her cheeks as humiliation settled heavy, but she clenched her fists, refusing to bow. "I will not beg," she whispered under her breath. The overseer's glare cut deep, yet she stood firm, knowing this rejection was only the beginning of greater trials. Emily stumbled toward the well in the village square, her throat parched. She bent to lift a bucket, but a young man she once called a friend, Daniel, smirked and blocked her path. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his tone laced with mockery. Shock pierced her chest as betrayal flashed in his eyes. She had trusted him once, shared laughter and secrets beneath starlit skies. Now his gaze held only contempt. "Daniel, why?" she whispered, her voice cracking. He shrugged coldly. "I have my own survival." Her heart clenched, the pain sharper than hunger. She realized trust was fragile, easily shattered in a world built on struggle. Emily found herself wandering toward the riverbank, her reflection rippling in the dark water. Memories of her father's words echoed, "The river carries strength if you listen." She whispered, "I need strength now more than ever." Her tears dropped into the current, vanishing swiftly. Behind her, voices of villagers mocked, "Poor orphan girl, cursed to wander." She closed her eyes, fists trembling. Their words stung, but the flowing water whispered resilience. Emily said softly, "You will not define me." In that moment, despair burned into resolve. She rose, her posture straighter, her eyes carrying the fire of survival. As night fell, Emily returned to the oak tree, her body trembling from exhaustion. She sat clutching the old book, whispering, "Show me a way, Papa." A figure approached quietly, an older man, Samuel, mid-50s, weathered yet kind. His voice carried weight. "You cannot survive on grief alone." Emily looked up, startled yet drawn to his presence. Samuel's eyes held both sorrow and wisdom. "Strength comes when you choose to fight, not when you hide," he said. She felt the sting of truth and whispered, "But I am alone." Samuel shook his head. "Not anymore. I see something in you." Hope flickered faintly, fragile but alive. Samuel sat beside Emily, his voice steady yet stern. "The world will break you if you let it, but you have a choice." Emily swallowed hard, clinging to the book. She whispered, "I'm not sure I'm strong enough." Samuel's gaze was sharp but compassionate. "Strength isn't born in comfort, child. It's carved from pain." His words cut deep, forcing her to confront the weight of her grief. Emily's eyes burned, but she nodded. "I want to rise," she said, her voice shaking but determined. For the first time, she felt less like a broken girl, and more like someone preparing to fight her fate. Emily walked through the village square at dusk, the market stalls closing as lanterns flickered to life. She felt eyes on her, whispers following like shadows. Daniel approached with a smile too sharp to be kind. "Emily, I can help you," he said, his tone dripping with false concern. She hesitated, remembering his cruelty before. Still, hope pulled at her, fragile as glass. Daniel leaned closer, voice low for a price. Her chest tightened, realization crashing like thunder. He was never her ally. He sought her desperation for gain. Betrayal seared her heart, her trust shattering. She whispered, "You were never my friend." Later, Emily overheard two villagers whispering near the well. Their voices struck like daggers. Her father owed debts. He begged mercy from the merchant but failed. Her breath caught. A secret buried deep unraveled before her. She pressed against the wall, heart pounding. "Papa, you never told me," she whispered, her voice trembling. The pieces fell together, his sickness, his exhaustion, his silence. It was not just poverty but chains of debt crushing him. Tears welled as betrayal mixed with grief. The world had stolen him long before death came. Emily clenched her fists, fire rising in her veins. "They will not break me too." Emily stormed through the alleys, her chest heavy with rage and grief. She reached the merchant's estate, its high walls looming against the night. Guards laughed as she approached, their eyes mocking. She shouted, "You stole my father's life." Her voice shook but carried fire. The merchant, mid-40s, stepped forward, robes gleaming. His tone was cold, dismissive. He was weak. The world consumes the weak. Emily's vision blurred with fury, her fists trembling. "You will answer for this," she cried. His laughter echoed, sharp and cruel, reminding her of her place. Yet in her heart, defiance burned brighter than fear. Shaken, Emily fled into the forest, branches clawing at her arms. She stumbled upon Samuel waiting near the oak tree, lantern in hand. His gaze was heavy with knowing. "You've uncovered truths," he said. Emily gasped. He died under their chains. They crushed him. Her words broke into sobs. Samuel placed a hand on her shoulder, firm yet gentle. "Pain is a teacher," he said, "but it can make you more than they expect." Emily's tears blurred her vision, but his words pierced through the storm of rage. She whispered, "I cannot carry this alone." Samuel's reply was steady, "You are not alone anymore." That night, under the endless sky, Emily sat by the oak tree, her father's book open on her lap. The words blurred through her tears, but her voice was steady as she whispered, "I will not break." The stars shimmered above, cold yet eternal. Samuel's presence beside her was silent strength. Emily touched the worn pages, her heart heavy yet aflame. Betrayal, secrets, and cruelty had tried to crush her, but something deeper stirred. She lifted her face to the heavens and said, "This is not my end, this is my beginning." Her voice carried into the night, a vow etched in fire. The village gathered in the square at dawn, summoned by the merchant's command. Emily stood at the edge, clutching her book as if it were armor. The merchant's voice boomed, "Debts must be repaid. Weakness will not be tolerated." Villagers nodded in fear, their eyes avoiding hers. Emily's stomach twisted, but her fists clenched tighter. She whispered to herself, "He cannot break me." The overseer dragged another family forward, their cries echoing. Emily's chest heaved with rage. She stepped closer, her voice trembling yet bold. "You cannot own us all." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The merchant's eyes locked on her, cold and cruel. The merchant sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "Your father thought he could defy me. He paid the price. Will you join him?" Emily's breath hitched, pain stabbing through her chest. Yet fire surged in her eyes. "My father was stronger than you ever were," she spat. The crowd stirred, whispers spreading like sparks. Samuel, standing behind her, spoke firmly, "Courage is worth more than gold." The merchant's hand gestured sharply, and God stepped forward, weapons gleaming in the light. Emily's heart pounded, fear clawing, but she stood unmoving. Her defiance had awakened danger, but also possibility. The guards lunged forward, and Samuel stepped between them and Emily. His voice thundered, "You will not touch her." The blow struck him instead, his body staggering but unyielding. Emily screamed, "No!" Her voice cut through the air like a blade. Pain and rage burned inside her as Samuel fell to one knee. His eyes met hers, calm yet fierce. "Stand tall," he whispered. Emily's chest ached, tears threatening to spill, but her spine stiffened. The villagers' silence cracked, murmurs of courage rising. Emily raised her chin, her voice breaking yet steady. "We will not be slaves." Emily's cry echoed, and a few villagers stepped forward, their faces torn between fear and courage. The merchant's expression hardened, fury tightening his jaw. "Crush this rebellion," he barked. Guards raised weapons, but hesitation flickered in their eyes. Samuel, bruised, gritted out, "This is your moment, Emily. Claim it." Her chest heaved, the weight of choice pressing down. She stepped before the guards, lifting her father's book high. Her voice rang, "You may own the land, but you will never own our spirits." Silence followed, broken only by the beating of hearts. It was the first spark of a greater fire. The merchant's lips twisted into a cruel smile. "You think words can save you?" he hissed. Yet Emily stood taller, voice unwavering. "Words are power, and I am not afraid." The villagers, emboldened, moved closer behind her, their whispers turning into cries of support. The guards faltered, glancing nervously at the crowd. Samuel's voice, weak but steady, carried across the square, "She is not alone." Emily felt strength swell inside her, born not of safety but of defiance. Her tears dried, her spine unbending. "This is where I rise," she declared, her voice carrying like thunder. The square erupted in chaos as the merchant's guards surged forward. Emily's heart pounded like war drums, yet her feet held their ground. Samuel, bruised and bleeding, whispered fiercely, "Do not step back." Villagers shouted in fear, torn between fleeing and fighting. Emily's eyes locked on the merchant's, his smirk sharp as a blade. "You are nothing," he sneered. Her chest burned with fury, memories of her father's collapse searing her veins. She shouted, "I am everything you tried to destroy." Her voice carried across the square, trembling yet unbreakable. The crowd hushed, and for the first time the merchant faltered. A guard lunged, striking Samuel down to the ground. Emily screamed, "No!" Her voice cracked but thundered across the silence. She knelt beside him, his hand weakly gripping hers. Blood stained his lips as he rasped, "Do not fear them, rise." Tears burned her cheeks, but Samuel's gaze pierced her grief. "This is your fight now," he whispered. Emily's chest heaved with rage, her book clutched like a weapon. She rose, her voice fierce. You may take lives, but you cannot take our spirit. Her cry ignited the crowd, and murmurs of resistance swelled louder than fear. The merchant's face twisted with fury. Crush her, he roared. Guards hesitated as villagers pressed forward, their courage sparked by Emily's defiance. Emily raised her voice, trembling yet strong. Do not bow to fear. Stand with me. A woman stepped forward, clutching her child, her voice quivering. She is right. Another man shouted, no more chains. The crowd surged closer, their unity growing like wildfire. The guards faltered, their confidence cracking. Emily's chest swelled as she saw their strength awaken. This is not just my fight, she declared. It is ours. For the first time, she felt the power of many. The merchant strode forward, his voice cold as steel. If they will not silence you, then I will. He grabbed Emily's wrist, twisting hard. Pain shot through her, but she did not cry out. She stared into his eyes, her voice steady. You fear me because I will not kneel. His grip faltered, rage twisting into doubt. Emily ripped free, lifting her father's book high. This is my strength, not your chains, she shouted. Gasps rippled through the crowd, their fear turning to fire. The merchant's authority cracked like glass, and for the first time, he looked smaller than his power. Silence fell as Emily raised her voice one last time, strong and unwavering. You cannot own us. We are more than your chains, more than your cruelty. Her cry thundered like storm clouds breaking. Villagers erupted, shouting in unison, their voices rising as one. Guards dropped weapons, fear overtaking loyalty. The merchant staggered back, his power dissolving before their eyes. Samuel, weak but smiling faintly, whispered, You have become what he feared most. Emily stood tall, trembling yet triumphant, her father's book pressed against her heart. The square roared, no longer bound by fear. It was the moment she truly rose. Dust settled over the square like tired snow, and the shouting thinned to breath. Emily steadied Samuel's shoulder as he winced and tried to rise. He gritted, I'm fine, but his blood said otherwise. The guards lowered their spears and backed into the shadow of their shame. The merchant retreated a step, eyes small, power leaking like water from a cracked jug. Villagers drifted closer, unsure, hopeful, afraid to speak first. Emily said no more debts, no more chains. A mother clutched her child and nodded through tears. An old man whispered, Is it truly over? Emily's voice held, It is over because we say so. Daniel hovered at the edge, head bowed, unable to meet her eyes. Samuel breathed hard and murmured, Hold the center, child. Emily tightened her grip on his hand and faced the crowd. We rebuild together, she said, and the square learned a new silence. It was the kind that waits for courage to move. They moved Samuel to the oak as twilight bled into blue. Fireflies blinked like small saints, and the evening cooled his fevered skin. Emily said, Stay with me, and pressed the old book beneath his hand. He smiled thinly. Your father taught me once to read by lantern. The world tilted as a secret found air. Samuel whispered, I failed a girl long ago when fear owned me. His eyes shone. I would not fail you. Emily's throat tightened as wind combed the leaves. She said, You didn't. You stood. He chuckled softly and coughed. You did the standing. I only pointed. Daniel stepped from the darkness and knelt, voice small. I am sorry. Emily answered, Then choose better, starting now. Samuel looked to the stars and breathed, Walk. His hand loosened in hers, and the night hushed, kind and heavy. Dawn found the village at the river, mist curling like breath over silver water. They laid Samuel in the earth where roots drank deeply. Emily said, You taught us to stand when standing hurt. Her voice trembled, but did not break. Children placed small stones as if building a promise. The women sang a thin hymn that widened into strength. Daniel whispered, Forgive me, eyes shining with salt and shame. Emily met his gaze and said, Forgiveness is a road. Walk it. The merchant watched from the path, stripped of swagger, a man facing his mirror. An elder spoke, "We will share seed and labor until all rise." Emily pressed the book to her chest and nodded. "We start today," she said. The river answered with a quiet rush, and birds wrote brightness across the sky. By noon, hammers spoke where fear once did. The square filled with benches, a chalkboard, and a roof of woven reed. Emily said, "We will read here, and we will count what matters." Children crowded close, eyes wide, while elders smiled like doors opening. Daniel stacked lumber and said, "Teach me to help before you teach me to read." Emily nodded, "Both are lessons." A widow brought grain and laughed at her own boldness. Men carried water without being told. The merchant's gate stood open and empty, a shell with no voice left. Emily traced letters on the board and said, "Names are maps, learn yours." The crowd repeated, the sound rough and beautiful. The day leaned warm, and hope found a chair. Night returned soft and starlit, and Emily walked the path between two small markers, one for her father, one for Samuel. She set the lantern down and sat cross-legged in the hush. She said, "I carried your weight until it became mine." The trees listened without judging. Crickets stitched a slow music through the dark. Emily opened the book and read a page aloud to no one and to everyone. "We are the hands that write our names," she said, and smiled. Wind lifted her hair and smelled of cut grass and clean earth. She rose and faced the village, where a single window glowed with study. Emily said, "I will keep walking." Then she added, quiet and certain, "I am not the storm's orphan. I am its daughter."